Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Ram Trucks.
Hello and welcome to a very festive fantasy playoff semifinal edition of Fantasy Football Live. We are coming to you on a Thursday this week because we just could not wait any longer. I am Andy Behrens here in Chicago, which might as well be the frozen ice planet of Hoth right at this moment. I'm joined by a couple of misfit toys. There's the distinguished professor of the receiving arts, Matt Harmon. And of course, I'm joined by DFS Shark Tank Williams. Gentlemen, let's get right to it. Who is the one player who absolutely cannot deliver a lump of coal in stocking sort of performance for you this weekend? Tank, we'll start with you.
I'm going with Gardner Minshew. I've been a big Jalen Hurts fan for so long, and so I had to go ahead and scoop up Gardner in the league or two. And honestly, I wanted just for my fantasy team, but more so just because I want to see the Cowboys go down, honestly. Because, I'm not a Cowboys hater, but Jerry Jones put so much pressure on that team. And just imagine what's going to be going on social media and on TV if Gardner Minshew somehow goes down there to Jerry World and they pull off an upset against those Cowboys, and I'm here to see it.
Feels like you might be a little bit of a Cowboys hater. I don't know, just a little bit. Matt, who do you need a big week from?
Well, here's the deal. I have at least a little bit of self-respect, so I'm not going to talk about the disgusting quarterback situation I find myself in that we talked about pre-show. I'm going to leave that out of this. What I will say is I'm going to need Josh Allen and I'm going to need Christian McCaffrey to do what they have done all season, which is just take my team, put it on their back, and get me to a couple championships here. Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, if they have bad games, if Christian McCaffrey goes out there and shows why he's definitely not a Pro Bowl back, sorry, Delton Del Don, I'm screwed, okay? I'm out this week.
Yeah, what happens in the pre-show definitely stays in the pre-show. That is sacred around here. For me, the answer to this is definitely Alvin Kamara. I have somehow stumbled into the semis in 3 different leagues with Kamara on the roster, despite the fact that he has not actually visited the end zone since October. He has a fantastic matchup this week at Cleveland, and if it's not too much trouble, I would appreciate a touchdown. But that's quite enough of my fantasy problems, of our fantasy problems. We're going to dive into the Thursday night game between the Jets and Jaguars in just a moment. But first, we need to take a look at some Week 16 injuries. Nick Chubb, dealing with a foot issue, but returned to practice on Thursday. He is expected to be good to go against New Orleans on Saturday. Lamar Jackson didn't practice this week, still managing his knee injury. He was ruled out for the home matchup with Atlanta. We're looking at another week of Tyler Huntley at quarterback for Baltimore. I am desperately trying to add him in a Superflex league right at this moment. Ryan Tannehill is seriously in doubt to play this week against Houston, according to Ian Rappaport, and may require surgery. It's going to be rookie Malik Willis at QB this week and maybe beyond. And as expected and confirmed this week by Nick Sirianni, Tank talked about it, Jalen Hurts will be sidelined at least for Saturday's game at Dallas due to a shoulder injury, which means Gardner Minshew is back in our fantasy lives. Can't wait for it. All right, as always, you can reach us on Twitter using the AskFFL hashtag or drop a question in the chat, and we'll see if we can help over the next hour or so. If you're still in need of help as the weekend rolls along, our own Scott Pianowski will be on Twitter offering roster solutions on Saturday ahead of the main NFL slate. Remember to use the hashtag AskFFL. Okay, we never have the opportunity to talk Thursday Night Football and FFL. This is kind of fun, but it's happening this week. It's Jets, it's Jaguars. At the start of the season, we might not have guessed that this matchup would actually have a pretty great deal of importance. It's a big deal. Vegas doesn't expect much offense here. The total is just 37 points. The weather should be nasty, at least in the second half of this game. I don't know, Matt, give me a player or matchup that interests you here.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the wide receivers in this matchup. I know there's weather talk, and my God, I can't wait. Obviously, I'll miss the NFL season. I'll miss fantasy season. I can't wait to stop talking about the damn weather, okay? I can't wait to never think about the forecast. ever again and how it might relate to football. I just can't wait to shoot all that stuff into the sun like we get to do at the end of every regular season. But I know there's weather concerns. Still interested in the wide receivers, especially Garrett Wilson versus Zay Jones. Which guy is the better play? I never thought I would be saying that at this point in the season, but these two guys actually since week 13 have pretty identical numbers. Literally, they both have a 23.3% share of the targets in their offense, and they each have 5 red zone targets as well. I mean, on paper resume is the exact same. Now, the talent gap between the two guys is pretty wide. I have been too disrespectful to Zay Jones. The guy is like a competent wide receiver 3. He's a pretty, despite that picture they just showed you of that ball like almost clanking off his hands there, he's a pretty solid player for the most part. But Garrett Wilson's just a stud. If I'm starting a wide receiver from this matchup between these two guys, I feel really good about Garrett Wilson going against a beatable Jacksonville secondary tonight.
Tank, talk to us about Trevor Lawrence, who's been surging against a pretty frisky Jets defense.
It's crazy because for so long we just had to call this guy Trevor Lawrence because he had to deal with Urban Meyer and all that stuff last year. But finally we can call this dude Sunshine because he's balling again. He's looking like that cat that we saw down in Clemson, and I love to see it. He had the Dallas Cowboys defense, which is one of the most formidable defenses in the league last week. He throws for over 300 yards. He throws for 4 touchdowns. He brings his team back, and then they end up winning the game. And I think we talked about it last week, how the Cowboys defense was overlooking the Jaguars and had their eyes set on Jalen Hurts. But, hey, Trevor Lawrence showed them that you better see me and pay attention to me. And that's the most beautiful thing. And now he has to deal with weather. He has to deal with Quinnen Williams. He has to deal with Sauce Gardner. I wish they were playing in the most pristine environment because I can see how he would really be able to perform against those guys, not having to deal with the weather. But all that being said, he has to go out there and try to get a win against a really tough team to keep their playoff hopes alive. So I'm interested to see how he's going to be able to do that and then continue to ascend to being one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
Personally, if you give me a chance to talk about Jacksonville, I am going to make sure that we discuss the heroic fantasy achievements of one Evan Ingram, who has surged to the tight end 4 on the season so far. Tight end 4 right now as we speak. Some might consider this an indictment of the position and not necessarily an indication that Evan Ingram is good, but I'm here to ask, why can't it be both? Why can't the position be terrible and Evan Ingram is okay? Over his last 3 games, this man has 24 catches, 254 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. He is giving you 8 receptions a week. No other tight end is doing that. He has been a really steady play, at least over the last month or so. And then you think about the conditions of this game. Obviously, it's going to be wet. It's going to be windy. We're probably not talking about a lot of deep downfield targets. Well, Evan Ingram has an ADOT of like 6.6. He's that short area guy. I just think if any aspect of Jacksonville's passing game is in for a big night, it's probably going to be that Lawrence to Evan Ingram connection that has been so good recently. All right, time to turn to the flex position and our built-to-serve picks brought to you by Ram Trucks. They're redefining what a truck can be and do every day with plenty of power, capability, and durability. Each week, we're picking players that align with these quality traits that can lead your fantasy lineup into a winning position. We're looking at just the 3 Christmas Day games for this. Tank, who is looking capable to you?
It's weird that I have to bring this guy's name up in this segment, but Aaron Jones. And the reason I have to bring it up is because A.J. Dillon has been a monster over the past couple of weeks. He's carried that Packers run game, even though Aaron Jones has still been relevant. But, you know, A.J. Dillon had like a concussion scare. He was in a protocol to start the week, but he had a full practice yesterday, and so I feel pretty good about him playing. But still, Aaron Jones is going to be totally involved in this offense. I have a feeling that if the Cheetah and the Penguin get off down there in Miami, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to kick that offense into high gear. And even though we always focus on Christian Watson now and the big playability that he gives the Green Bay Packers offense right now, Aaron Jones is still a big piece of the puzzle. I expect him to be that way down in South Beach this week. I expect you to be able to rely on him being a capable cog in your fantasy lineup as you try to navigate the playoffs.
Yeah, my pick for durability is going to be Cam Akers. He's got Denver this week, and you look back at these last 3 games, all of a sudden Cam Akers kind of surging. He's seeing 15 touches per week. He's got 3 touchdowns during this recent stretch. He's coming off a game in which he played 70% of the snaps. So he's really taken over in that Rams backfield for whatever that's worth. We're not talking about some super high efficiency offense here. But the matchup this week is actually not that bad. Denver, clearly a good defense. They are great against the pass. They are elite against the pass. They've been kind of friendly to the run, kind of middle of the pack against the run. You think back over the last couple games, they've given up big weeks to James Conner, to the Chiefs running backs. I think Cam Akers can do much the same. I don't think that we're talking about like some super high scoring game, so I think the run is going to be in play basically all day. I think Akers probably finds the end zone in this one, gives you another 65, 75 yards. Tank, talk to me about power.
Oh, I'm going to talk to you about power. And you know who has the power? Latavius Murray and also me, because Andy won't tell you that. Everything that goes on before the show is not sacred, because this guy was trying to give me all kind of beef because I picked up Latavius Murray before he can pick his selection. Yeah, he has Cam Akers. You notice that he talked about Cam Akers having 70% of the snaps because he didn't really want to focus on the yards because he only had 12 carries, 65 yards, which is cool. Latavius Murray had 24 carries, 130 rush yards in the tub last week. And guess what? The Green Bay Packers rushed for over 138 yards against that Rams defense last week on Monday Night Football. I have a feeling that my man Latavius is going to get off once again. He has the power in this matchup. I have the power because I was able to scoop up Latavius before Reverend Barons. Therefore, make sure you have the power to put him in your lineup so you can drive your fantasy team home to a playoff dub.
Oh, yeah, I detected no lies there. You did get into the document ahead of me. I usually get in the show doc before absolutely anybody else, and I was going to claim Latavius. You took him. You scooped me. It doesn't happen very often, but it happened this week. All right, get those guys in your rosters, and be sure to check out the entire game-changing Ram lineup at ram.com.
Oh, man, from Tank's lips to the fantasy god's ears, I need Latavius Murray so bad, and I hate to say it. What I don't hate to say is that Dalton Del Don is joining the show this morning. You know, Dalton, our guy Santa Claus here, he's just judging people all year long. You know, this kid's naughty, this kid's nice, he's not getting any presents, whatever. But you're a professional judger. You're judging football players and fantasy players all the time. So put on your judgmental hat here. We're going to give out some naughty or nice. We're going to put some players on the list here today and decide if over the weekend they're going to give fantasy players a beautiful performance or a bunch of coal in their stocking or whatever it is Santa Claus is doing these days. I don't know. Let's start off with a guy that you've been talking to me about all week long here in Dalvin Cook.
I didn't get the sweater memo, but I threw on a Santa hat from Trey Lance behind me here for the festivities here. Dalvin Cook is my first guy. He's been a fantasy disappointment this year mostly, but he's still dominated usage in Minnesota's backfield. The Vikings have struggled to run since trading for TJ Hawkinson, but that includes a stretch of incredibly tough run defenses before last week when Cook finished his fantasy's #2 fantasy back. He now gets a Giants run defense allowing an NFL high 5.4 yards per carry and nearly 150 yards from scrimmage per game to running backs. Cook has averaged 110 yards from scrimmage with 6 touchdowns at home this season. In a week filled with low over-unders and matchups dealing with poor weather, he plays indoors on a Vikings offense with one of the highest totals on the slate. So I say Cook delivers a nice present for fantasy managers this week.
All right, so people are going to be feeling pretty good. They walk downstairs, Dalvin Cook's just under the tree. They're going to feel really good about that. Not weird at all. Let's say another running back in the NFL, another big name sitting under the tree in the morning you're not feeling so good about.
Yeah, Joe Mixon's on the naughty list. He continues to see nice work as a receiver, but he's losing more and more carries to Samaje Perine, who's arguably played better this season. Mixon has averaged more than 125 scrimmage yards at home, but fewer than 65 yards on the road. Meanwhile, New England has allowed the fewest yards per play at home, the second fewest fantasy points to running backs, and an NFL low 6 rushing scores this year. Mixon has only been a top 5 RB once all season, back in week 9. He hasn't put up top 15 numbers in any week since. So again, the target should be there, and I'm not saying to bench Mixon, but expectations need to be tempered in a tough matchup.
One guy we've definitely juiced up expectations the last couple of weeks after he's been the best running back in fantasy for 2 weeks in a row. It's Jerick McKinnon, officially on Dalton Del Don's nice list.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. Jet has been the top scoring fantasy back in consecutive weeks, while Isaiah Pacheco has also averaged 16 opportunities over that span. McKinnon has quietly been dominating red zone snaps as well as the high value touches, and a Kansas City offense averaging the most yards per play, the most EPA per play, and the most points per game this season. Yes, his recent fantasy production's probably unsustainable, but McKinnon is getting the second most yards per touch this year, and he's seen 17 targets from Patrick Mahomes over the last 2 games. KC has easily the highest implied team total this week when Clyde Edwards-Helaire remains out, and the Chiefs will be facing a Seattle team that's allowed the second most rushing touchdowns and the second most fantasy points to running backs this season. So keep riding McKinnon in your fantasy playoffs.
I know I said this to you on the Stat Nerd podcast earlier this week, Dalton. Like, oh yeah, Jerick McKinnon used to be Dalvin Cook's backup in Minnesota. That guy was literally Adrian Peterson's backup. He was the guy that we were all like, why is it Matt Asiata at the goal line? Like 2014, 2015. It was insane. I mean, this guy's been around forever, but he is officially on the nice list. You love to see it. The Jerick McKinnon truthers are finally having their day. Not going to be a good day for 2 NFL teams on Sunday, Dalton. I know I just decried the weather early on, but how about you go ahead and put some guys on the naughty? Hey, Santa, no fly zone over these 2 cities this week.
Yeah, most involved in the Saints-Browns game. I know, Harmon, you're tired of weather, and we can overrate it at times for sure. But realize last week's game in Buffalo everyone was scared about, that game still had a 45-point over-under. This Browns-Saints game's total is 32 points, just crazy low. They're calling for 30-mile-per-hour sustained winds, gusts up to 50. It's supposed to feel like negative 14 degrees at kickoff. Going to be tough to pass. Deshaun Watson has been one of the league's most inaccurate quarterbacks since his return. You're sitting him here. Amari Cooper, yes, he's at home, but he's battling a hip injury along with the wind. Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry have already both been ruled out. Andy Dalton's prop line is 135 passing yards for this game, the lowest ever. And finally, I know that Andy Behrens doesn't want to hear it, but Alvin Kamara may also bring cold to his fantasy managers this week, despite the plus matchup on paper. Kamara's averaged more than 120 yards from scrimmage at home, fewer than 60 on the road this season without any scores. In fact, Kamara has more lost fumbles this year than he has scored touchdowns, and he ran fewer routes than David Johnson last week. So he's another shaky start in this matchup with one of the lowest projected totals you'll ever see in the NFL.
Hey, Dalton, I know how to read between the lines with you, buddy. All I heard there was 15 Taysom Hill touches coming in this game, which is definitely fantasy gold. Yeah, that's fantasy gold for most people out there. Hey, Dalton, appreciate you, buddy. Thanks so much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you. We'll see you soon.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Oh, I love that we're still lighting up Matt Asiata on this show. What a tradition. All these years later, we're still firing on that guy. Good times. It's prop time. This is my favorite segment in the show. I didn't know if I'd like it, but turns out I'm a prop super genius. We're in the final week of picks right now. Matt has a chance to make it interesting if he can get a sweep this week. And this week, we're only picking from the Jets-Jags game that kicks off in about an hour. Tank, we'll start with you. What do you have first?
I'm going Travis Etienne over 16.5 attempts in this game. We know the weather is going to do something strange for a piece of change. So I anticipate him getting a bunch of carries just because they're not going to be able to do too much with the wind and the rain and everything else. So I'm going to just go ahead and keep this quick and say, Harmon, I know you have to do some really strange things to try to catch up with Reverend Behrens. Are you going to fade or follow your boy?
I mean, I got to get them all correct. If I get them all correct, I make it interesting. So I will be with you on this one, Tank. I'm also going over 16.5 on the rush attempts for ETN here.
Yeah, we can sweep this thing. I like the over on this as well. Obviously, the run is going to be in play all game for ETN. It's going to be the thing that they're able to do. So I'm down with the over on this one. Mine is going to be a rushing prop as well. I'm going to take the over on 12.5 rushing yards for Trevor Lawrence. First of all, I like a line that a guy can get in like one touch. I'm a big fan of that. I think he can do it. Lawrence has actually gone over this total in 7 of his last 10 games. I mean, I wouldn't be in this position if I weren't a coward, of course. Gone over this in 7 of his last 10 games. He's got a sneaky rushing component to his game that doesn't get enough pub. He is absolutely going to do this, I think. Again, sloppy conditions. We're talking about a defense that's going to heat him up a little bit, so I think he's going to have to be on the move. So I think he goes over. Matt, are you joining me? Surely you're joining me.
Nope. I will be going against you on this one here, buddy. So yeah, I'll fade you. I'll fade you on this one. I don't. You're confusing your 2021 rookie quarterbacks. This is not Justin Fields. This is Trevor Lawrence. So I'll go under on this.
It's only 12.5.
It's
Hank,
only 12.5. Yeah, it's only 12.5, and I have to go with that ray of sunshine that's going to be lighting up the way, even though we're going to be dealing with thunderstorms there in New Jersey. So yeah, I'm following along with sunshine over 12.5 rush yards.
All right,
Matt,
last
give me a
one
prop
up
that
here.
I can agree with.
No, don't agree with this, Andy. Come on, the weather. Think about those gusty winds, the rain. Oh, football players, they can't do anything in those terrible conditions. Christian Kirk, Andy, there's no way he's going to go over 48.5 receiving yards. Come on, Sauce Gardner, remember that guy? He's pretty good. It certainly won't be lining up against Zay Jones most of the time and those outside receivers. He's going to move into the slot and guard Christian Kirk. I'm going to go over here on 48.5 yards, Andy, for Christian Kirk. But certainly you will be taking the under.
I will, in fact, not be taking the under on this. I like the over here. This is a good, I would like this even if it weren't a strategic agree with Harmon so I can guarantee myself a win in this contest sort of situation. But I do like the over here, low total, even in a game like this. I think 50 yards from Christian Kirk is well within range. Tank, do you agree?
I mean, I think just because this is the last time we're ever doing this segment, so I need to just get back to my roots and hate on everything that Harmon does. So even though I've been a big Christian Kirk fan, I'm going to go ahead and fade this one. And so, hey, either I just go ahead and secure the caboose or Harmon and I end up in a tie or something like that. Either way, it works for me. So, Christian Kirk, I love you, but I'm fading you to black. He's going under.
Not feeling a lot of holiday spirit from Matt Harmon here. Just throwing that out there. It is not quite over yet.
Should have thrown out a Zach Wilson prop, I guess.
You could have if you were bold. But no, not quite over yet in this thing. Well, okay, it's over for Tank, but not for Harmon. Yeah. Let's take a look at these standings. There I am, where I've sat for weeks now. But Harmon with a sweep, closing the gap. It's a possibility that we tie. It could happen.
Not really. I don't think mathematically.
Can we just bring back the DFS challenge?
No. Hey, well, I'm the reigning champ of that, Tank. If you really want that smoke in your life, pal.
Unfortunately, we can't just leave this graphic up for the rest of the show. It is, in fact, time for our first break on Fantasy Football Live. Got a lot of feasting going on this holiday weekend. Our Fantasy Feast breakdown is coming up next.
You want your sports news in more than just a few characters? With the help of a bunch of different characters?
You play better than me, I respect this like you.
He beat us, yes. I'm not a ball player. Prince had hops.
Hosted by everyone's favorite character.
Only time we'll tell if that's a lie or a big-ass lie.
You're Calais Campbell's brother, so Calais got the most sacks that he has is on me.
Give us 2 minutes and we'll give you The Rush. Weekday mornings on Yahoo Sports.
Welcome to Mad Bets, everyone. I am Minty Bets alongside Jared Quay and Pam Maldonado. I'm Ariel Epstein.
We've got a big Sunday night football game.
It's time for some Monday night football. Jared, let's kick things off with you. What's your best bet this week?
Oh, I love my bet with 5-star confidence.
Ariel, you can call it a homer pick if you want. It's not.
By the way, that probably will be in Prop Queen coming up on Sunday.
I'm gonna be busting these babies out this weekend.
Woo! You did that with your winning bets, huh? You've been on fire. That's what you're buying with your winnings?
Oh man, I love it.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. We have a fantasy feast ahead on Saturday in Kansas City where it's going to be cold. but we still expect many points and yards in that one. The game total is 49. KC is a 10-point favorite. Another note on this game, Kenneth Walker did not get into practice today. Hasn't practiced this week, still nursing the ankle injury, so truly questionable to play. Pete Carroll, who thinks that everybody's going to play all the time, says he's going to go. Hopefully that's the case. Matt, we'll start with you here. You already heard Dalton talking up Jerick McKinnon earlier. What are you expecting from the Chiefs back in this one?
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing when Tyler Lockett actually takes the field, just because Pete Carroll, the optimism, the injury optimism is going to be so beautiful. But sticking on Jerick McKinnon, yeah, when we talk about a guy twice in one show, it's an ultimate curse. McKinnon's toast. But let's just pretend that's not true for a second here. I think the thing that people need to know about Jerick McKinnon is that if anybody in this backfield is pigeonholed into a role, it's not Jerick McKinnon. It's actually Isaiah Pacheco, who is just an early down banger, not a third down back at all, and really just they're only going to use him in clear rushing scenarios because they don't trust him in the passing game. With McKinnon, he's not just a passing down back. He's not a third down specialist or a hurry up specialist or anything like that. All 10 of his carries against the Texans last week came on first or second down. 6 of his 8 targets and catches came on first or second down. So this guy's kind of got a bit of everything in terms of his role. He's got the passing game equity there. He does have those hurry up situations and all the clear passing down stuff, but he's also got the early down work, the early down rushing equity in his bag too. I mean, he just has a perfect fantasy football role. I can't see him failing in this matchup, even though the Chiefs are pretty heavy favorites against the Seahawks.
Tank, do you want to give us the case for Isaiah Pacheco here?
Yeah, well, you just heard it here first. My man Matt Harmon just put the Gisele Bundchen curse on Jet McKinnon, which means that my man Isaiah Pacheco is going to finally go off because I mean, we've been waiting for it. I mean, he should be doing this game. If I just can rattle off some stats, against the Seattle Seahawks run defense, the 49ers had 170 rush yards. Carolina had 223. The Rams, who have the 3rd worst rushing offense in the league, had 171. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have the dead last rushing offense in the league, had 161. Which means that no matter what you do, who you are, you can run the ball on the Seattle Seahawks. Which means that even though the Chiefs can somehow struggle with teams like they've done lately, I think that they should be able to run the ball early and effectively, which means that my man Pacheco will hopefully get more volume than he's accustomed to, even though he's been getting a decent clip. And then finally have that blowout game where he has multiple touchdowns, even though Jerick McKinnon isn't going anywhere.
All right, let me just tell you about my recent experience streaming the Kansas City defense because I loved their matchups. Did it first against Denver, then against Houston. That was a pretty bad idea. So Denver put up 28. Denver, a team that never scores, put up 28 points. And then Houston took them to overtime. This is a bad defense, it turns out. And this is a very roundabout way of saying that you need to start Geno Smith. I know you're worried about the cold. You might be worried about the conditions. Listen, Geno has a path here to finish as a top 5 fantasy quarterback this week. Even without Tyler Lockett, I think he can be top 5 at his position. I certainly think DK Metcalf can be top 5 at his. Geno right now has thrown 26 touchdown passes. He currently still leads the league in completion percentage. He's been great all year, just made the Pro Bowl. And then the Kansas City defense, they've given up 30 passing touchdowns on the season. That is the highest total in the league. This is definitely a blow-up spot for Geno. Don't overthink it. You have to worry about the weather this week because we have problems everywhere, but don't overthink Geno Smith. This matchup is just too good. Okay, Tank, let's see if any Chiefs or Seahawks found their way into your Saturday Ballers on a Budget.
A lot of repeats. What it do, baby? It's your boy T-Money, a.k.a. The Blinch, the Black Grinch, and this is my Week 16 Ballers on a Budget. Now, this is for the Saturday slate. Starting off with at QB, quarterback Gardner Minshew at $20. Give me the stash for the cash. We already talked about this matchup. I think Jerry Jones has put the curse on this team. I think they're going to have a lot of pressure, and they're going to want to press to kind of settle down Gardner Minshew. But look, this dude is going to play well. He has Devontae Smith still. He has A.J. Brown. He has Dallas Goedert. He has Miles Sanders behind him, and he has a strong defense to lean on. He's not Jalen Hurts. He isn't the MVP, but I think he can play well in this matchup. He's only $20. This is a layup for you in the DFS format. Make sure you get him in your lineup. At running back, I'm going with J.K. Dobbins. He's going against the Atlanta Falcons. He's only $19. And, man, my analysis for this is real simple. Like Alvin Kamara, his stats going into that game with Atlanta look like Flavor Flav's baby pictures. Then all of a sudden you play against the Falcons, and then he rushed for damn near 100 yards. And so now J.K. Dobbins, even though he's still gimpy, that giddy-up still giddy-ups. And he's been getting over 100 yards in the past couple games. I have a feeling he's going to get over 100 yards in this game as well. His price is in the teens, which makes sure that man's going to be clean. Get him in your lineup. You know what I mean? Now at wide receiver, I'm going with Marquise Goodwin at Kansas City. He's $19 as well, and we've seen this already before. This dude had like 56, 76 yards, 2 tubs against the Los Angeles Chargers earlier this year. As my man Harmon already talked about, Tyler Lockett is going to be out, even though Pete Carroll is saying he may be able to play, but he's going to be out with that finger. I think this is going to be a matchup where Andy said Geno Smith should be able to cook because the Houston Texans and Denver Broncos went up against this Chiefs defense. And my man Geno, he's a Pro Bowler. God bless him. He deserves it. He should be able to play well this week, so make sure you get my man Marquise and DK, for that matter, into your lineup because I think Seattle can put up some points against the Chiefs. Now at tight end, we're going with T.J. Hockenson versus the New York Giants. He's $19. And it's pretty simple to me. Like, there's only a few tight ends that you can really depend on a week-to-week basis. T.J. Hockenson is one of them. This is a really good matchup against the New York Giants defense that gives up the 12th most fantasy points to tight ends. And we know how nasty that New York Giants offense can be. And so I can see this one staying close, which means that my man Daniel Jones is going to have to lean heavily on the run game and then also on the play action to TJ. What am I talking about? My man Kirk Cousins is going to have to lean on the run game with Dalvin Cook and then the play action to T.J. Hockenson. And so that's why I feel like he's going to be a good play against that New York Giants defense that's been giving up an average of almost 180 yards to the run game. So remember, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your lineup or your wallet if you do not get these guys in, because remember, I'm the dude that gave you Zay Jones last week, and he threw up 3 tubs. So even though it looked a little rough with the T.J. Hockenson play, your boy know what he's talking about. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw this thing over to my man Matt Harmon as he gets ready for the Fantasy Face-Off with the Reverend.
Hey, Tank, we know you were just trying to do your guy Daniel Jones a solid, getting him a pass catcher of
Right.
some repute here. Like, you're just trying to do him a favor, man. So we know what you're doing there. And I know Danny Dimes is watching at home, and he thanks you very much for that effort as well. Andy, Jahan Dotson, that guy put up a great effort, really both of the last 2 games against those New York Giants. You know I love myself some Jahan Dotson, but I got to admit, I am pretty nervous. He is our guy for Fantasy Face-Off this week. I am so nervous that Taylor Heineke and the boys are going to get stuffed in a locker by this San Francisco 49ers defense. So let's put him up against some more established guys and see just what I can stomach here with Jahan Dotson. First up, we've got him up against Adam Thielen, who didn't get a lot of targets in that big comeback against the Colts last week, but he did what he usually does and found his way into the end zone.
Yeah, a part of me feels as if Jahan Dotson, and this is a sloppy comparison, but he's kind of like new Thielen, right? Just a guy
I love that.
Scoring. Yeah, he is scoring just absolutely every week. He's been great in the red zone. He's got 6 touchdowns in his 9 games, and he's got 15 targets over his last 2. So this isn't like early in the season when Jahan Dotson was scoring like a touchdown on 3 targets, whatever. He's getting fed right now. I like Thielen here, but he's a little bit down in the pecking order for Minnesota. I think we've seen KJ Osborne kind of catch up to him a little bit. Osborne coming off a 16-target game. I think he's like the 3rd or 4th option right now, and I don't think that's the case for Dotson. It is a difficult matchup, obviously, for Dotson, but you can't run on San Francisco at all. We've seen teams just not even try it, just abandon the run entirely, and you can move the ball a little bit through the air. So I think if anybody scores there, anybody in that receiving core, it's probably Dotson. So I'm going to go him over Thielen.
I will say, Ron Rivera's done two things publicly this week. They put out an awesome video of him. If people haven't watched it, go check out the Commanders' Twitter. I retweeted it as well. Him telling his special teamer, Reeves, that he made the Pro Bowl. That was awesome. The other thing he did, though, was he kind of put us on Wentz watch. Don't love that as much, okay? If we see Carson Wentz in this game against 49ers, I'm going to throw up. So I will go Adam Thielen over Jahan Dotson, just because I like the matchup. I like the game script much better for the Vikings and the Giants. I think that one could be pretty fantasy friendly. So I'll go Thielen over Dotson. Next one up here, Jahan Dotson or Donovan Peoples-Jones. Peoples-Jones has sort of kind of started to find his way into the end zone lately, Andy, after getting a lot of targets early on.
Yeah, had a touchdown a week ago, had a big target total a couple of weeks ago. He's facing a New Orleans defense that has not allowed 70 yards to a receiver in any of the last 7 games. He's in that miserable weather game. I think I'm gonna go Dotson here as well. Again, I get it, difficult matchup, but I don't have to contend with weather so much here, and he's just been a touchdown machine.
Yeah, let's keep this simple. I'm with Dotson as well. Would like to try to avoid any sort of aerial players that aren't Taysom Hill in that Browns Saints game. Last one up here. Okay, I mean, Jahan Dotson versus the great Josh Palmer here, Andy. We're talking about maybe the third or fourth option. Fourth option for Justin Herbert here and Josh Palmer, or Jahan Dotson. Which way are you leaning? I think you know which way I might go.
Yeah, the party's over for Josh Palmer, right? Like he's been fine in recent weeks, but the volume is gone. We got Keenan Allen back, we got Mike Williams back, and they are flatly better receivers than Josh Palmer. So he hasn't been over 60 receiving yards in any of the last 4. People still ask about him. I get it. We had good times together, but I think it's over. I think you got to go Jahan Dotson there.
I think you know which way I'm going. It's definitely Jahan Dotson for sure. Just a better player. I get it. Different quarterback, but still better player. I'll go with Jahan Dotson. Man, that guy is so much fun. You know what else is fun, Andy? Answering the people's questions.
Let's do it. Let's answer some questions from the people. Let's start with IC Thread people asking. It's a simple one, but one of these guys playing tonight. We got Rashad White or Zonovan Knight. Don't know the format. Tank, who are you going with here?
Man, I like Bam Knight in this one, man. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars are friendly against running backs, and as I kind of mentioned in my segment, the Tampa Bay run offense is the worst in the league. So even though they have a really nice matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, I'd rather go with a proven commodity. Man, Robert Saleh said that dude Bam is juicy when he runs, and you don't really talk about guys and running backs being juicy, but Bam Knight fits the bill, so I'm rolling with him.
Let's take another one here. This next question is from Justin. Justin is asking, I'll take this one. Justin is asking Evan Ingram, Darren Waller, or Dallas Goedert. Justin, you may not know this. I'm something of an Evan Ingram expert. So yeah, I'm going with the overall tight end 4 on the season. I think he's in for a nice night tonight. I think he's in for plenty of volume. We've really seen him emerge over the last 3 weeks. Targets are always there. Again, 8 catches a game over the last 3. I'm a little bit more tempted by Goddard than Waller, but he's making his return off of a long absence due to injury. So for me, this is the tight end 4, Evan Ingram. Last one here. Let's take a question from Don. Don is asking Christian Kirk, we all like the over on Christian Kirk this week, or David Montgomery, playing in a game where the game time temperature is supposed to be like minus 16 real feel. Matt, who are you going with there?
Ooh, freezing rain or this cyclone thing we've got here going on with Christian Kirk. The weather. I'm going to go with Christian Kirk in this one. Just think he projects better. Look, we know the deal with the Jets defense. It's awesome. It's a great unit, but I think they could force the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hands quickly. You definitely don't want to be throwing into the teeth of the outside cornerbacks. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed on the outside. I think Christian Kirk as a slot receiver for Jacksonville should be a pretty good projection here on Thursday night.
Yeah, another wrinkle for David Montgomery this week. Khalil Herbert coming back, no running back, has averaged more yards per carry than that guy this season, so he's going to see a little run as well. All right, time for our next break here on Fantasy Football Live. Coming up, Matt and Tank have some Christmas Eve surprises. Don't go away. Also, don't forget, next week is our 2022 championship finale. Join us on December 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, right here on Yahoo Sports.
You want your sports news in more than just a few characters? With the help of a bunch of different characters?
You play better than me, I respect the shit out of you.
He beat us, yes. I'm not a ball player. Prince had hops.
Hosted by everyone's favorite character.
Only time will tell if that's a lie or a big-ass lie.
You're Calais Campbell's brother, so Calais got the most sacks that he has is on me.
Give us 2 minutes and we'll give you The Rush. Weekday mornings on Yahoo Sports.
Welcome to Mad Bets, everyone. I am Minty Beth alongside Jared Quay, Pam Maldonado. I'm Ariel Epstein.
We've got a big Sunday night football game.
It's time for some Monday Night Football. Jared, let's kick things off with you. What's your best bet this week?
Oh, I love my bet with 5-star confidence.
Ariel, you can call it a homer pick if you want. It's not.
By the way, that probably will be in Prop Queen coming up on Sunday.
I'm gonna be busting these babies out this weekend.
Woo! You did that with your winning bets, huh? You've been on fire. That's what you buying with your winnings?
Oh man, I love it.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. Tank and I are here to tell you who are going to be some surprise players on Christmas Eve. Tank, all of our relatives, friends, and family, they're pretty surprised that the NFL is going to dominate this entire holiday. But beyond that surprise, tell us who some of the players that might be surprising fantasy managers will be on the Saturday slate.
I think Darius Slayton may be someone that will surprise folks on the Saturday slate, just for the simple fact that his quarterback is Daniel Jones. And when I looked at Daniel Jones' stats, this dude has only thrown over 200 passing yards 5 times this year. But that being said, he did throw over 300 yards in the game. And guess who he faces this week? The Minnesota Vikings. Whenever a team goes against the Minnesota Vikings, you can bet heavily on their pass game because the Minnesota pass defense is straight trash. I feel like this is an opportunity for the New York Giants to get that pass offense on track. We could even get a sneaky shootout in this one too if Daniel Jones could be on his P's and Q's. But regardless, Slayton has shown that he can be a competent wide receiver for the New York Giants, and I expect that to continue this week as well.
I'm going to stay in that game and talk about another wide receiver, and I think we get a repeat of a Saturday surprise here with KJ Osborne on the Minnesota Vikings. Look, I know it's kind of chasey, right? He had that big game, that absolutely out of nowhere eruption game against the Colts, but I think he can run it back here, Tank. It's interesting when you watch KJ Osborne, they've got him playing the slot receiver role, right? Like all summer we had to talk about Justin Jefferson to the Cooper Kupp role, Justin Jefferson to the Cooper Kupp role, and it's KJ Osborne as the slot receiver in Kevin O'Connell's offense. I think it does fit him pretty well because he's a very explosive guy, but you've got to tighten up the fundamentals a little bit. He's a little bit sloppy with the route running, stuff like that, but the explosiveness is there. He can get open. He still ran a route on 87% of the dropbacks last week. I think that usage is going to be similar, and man, that Giants secondary has been giving it up to big play threats like Jahan Dotson. I think KJ Osborne can get it done this week.
Yeah, my next player that I'm talking about is Marquise Goodwin. I know he's a repeat. He's not only a ball on the budget, but he's someone that may save your fantasy season because I know a lot of guys are dealing with the loss of Tyler Lockett. But here's how. Like Andy has already talked about how trash that Kansas City defense has been playing as of late, and he should be able to fill in on the opposite side of DK Metcalf. DK should get most of the coverage from the defense, which should give him some one-on-one coverage on the other side. I think he'll be able to take advantage of that. He's shown the ability to have multiple touchdown games early in the season. I'm not saying he's going to have a multiple touchdown game this week, but playing against the Kansas City Chiefs and having an opportunity to possibly chase behind Patrick Mahomes and a lot of points, Geno should have to sling it around. He should be a main beneficiary of that. Make sure you get my man Marquise Goodwin if you don't already have him on your roster.
Man, I just hope I can survive the loss of Tyler Lockett this week. I think it might sink a couple of my teams that I really, really care about. Tank, I know you know this because you had this guy, and again, I know I'm cursing another player here by putting him in the show twice. You had this guy in your DFS lineup, but I'm not sure a lot of people know that J.K. Dobbins actually leads the NFL in rushing in the last 2 weeks, 245 yards for J.K. Dobbins. And the guy even admits he's not all the way back. His explosiveness isn't all the way back. You can see that when he gets into the open field. Well, he's still been exploding for a lot of rushing yards of late. Obviously, the matchup was great last week against the Cleveland Browns. He's still splitting that backfield with Gus Edwards for sure. That's going to be the thing here. But, man, we got another great matchup here against the Atlanta Falcons. Alvin Kamara had 91 yards. That was his most yardage since, like, week 6 or something crazy like that. I mean, I really think when you look at J.K. Dobbins, he is going to be the focal point of this Ravens offense. The rushing production has been there. It should be there yet again. I mean, the Ravens just signed Sammy Watkins off the street. Tank, that's how down bad they are in the passing game. We should see the ball in Dobbins' belly and Gus Edwards' belly an awful lot against the Falcons on Christmas Eve. All right, let's see what's cooking in the sportsbook with Andy and Ariel.
Yeah, I'm here in the sportsbook with the great Ariel Epstein. Look at us, just a couple of props titans, two of the best to ever do it. We're going to look specifically at the Saturday slate of games in this one. And Ariel, we heard Dalton talking down Joe Mixon earlier. You found a prop that kind of syncs up with that.
Fade Joe Mixon this weekend for Cincinnati. Their running back got his under of 60.5 rushing yards. This really isn't as much of a numbers play as it is about the situation that the Bengals might find themselves in this weekend. The Patriots are the 7th best run defense in football against running backs, limiting running backs to the 7th least rushing yards per game. And this situation is going to probably cause the Cincinnati Bengals to throw the football more because I think the Patriots cover the spread and keep this game close or even win the game outright. Cincinnati's in a horrible spot. They just faced the Bucs. They had a horrible first half, came back in the second half, looked great, cool. Except now they're going to face the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens for the next 2 weeks. Who are you going to sleep on in this trio? The Pats, the Bills, or the Ravens? Probably the New England Patriots. It's just a bad spot for Cincinnati on the road, and the numbers for Cincinnati this year on the road haven't been as strong as at home. The Bengals, they were below 500 up until I think last week on the road this season. I'm going to fade the Bengals, and that means that the Bengals are going to have to throw the football more. So fade Joe Mixon in the run game under 60.5 rushing yards.
Okay, I like that call. We're going to talk about another running back in the same division. Nick Chubb was just absolutely carrying fantasy managers this year until he wasn't. He's missed some time this week with a foot injury, returned to practice. You like the over on his rushing total here.
Over 76.5 rushing yards for Browns running back Nick Chubb. He's a running back that has absolutely crushed bad run defenses, and that's what he's getting this week against New Orleans, who allows the 8th most rushing yards per game to running backs. I love that Chubb rushed for 99 against Baltimore, had 116 against Tampa, and those are good run defenses. So now you're getting one that's bad. Plus, it's going to be horrible weather in Cleveland this weekend. There might even be snow. It's going to be cold. I even saw the passing yards prop for the quarterback of the Browns, Deshaun Watson, is below 200 passing yards. So the books aren't even thinking that Watson's going to throw the football. So who do you give it to? Your running back, who's absolutely incredible this year, and against a bad run defense. I'll take the over on Nick Chubb rushing yards this weekend.
Oh, I love that call. Nick Chubb is so good. Give us a pick tonight in this Thursday game.
I'm riding with the Jets. I'm so nervous about this because this is just an ugly game. However, it is a fishy line. Saw the line go from pick'em to -2.5. The Jets, despite the fact that only 28% of bets, 31% of money's coming in on New York, and the line's moving in their favor. Crazy stat here that I have to read because I want to get it right. Since 2006, home favorites on Thursday Night Football who did not have to travel and their opponent just played an overtime game, they are 7-0 straight up and against the spread, winning those games by just over 21 points per game. Not only does the trend work in the Jets' favor, they are the better defense. They're top 10 against the run, top 10 against the pass. They're fighting for a wild card spot in New York. I'll lay the points with the Jets, but at 2.5 now, it's just a little bit too much. You're getting the worst of the line, so just take the money line.
Oh, that feels like a good call as well. All right, you can follow Ariel on Twitter at Ariel Epstein. She's great. Thank you so much for joining us this season on FFL. Let's send it now to Matt and Tank to help the people.
Yes, the holidays. That's the time where we force people in the same room together, try to get them to set aside their differences.
Happy holidays.
Clearly, what they're doing with me and Tank here in yet another segment together, baby. But we will set aside our differences, Tank. We'll be good. We won't drink too much and tell each other what we really think. Hey, here's something about you that you don't know. Anyways, we'll save that for actual Christmas and our actual relatives. So let's get serious for a second. It's time for Make Your Pick. This is where we assist you viewers with your messiest start-sit decisions. Let's see what the people are asking. And usually, Tank, I would get all upset about somebody like Wes who says they need to pick 3 out of this group of studs here. Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Hopkins, J.K. Dobbins. Wow, what problems to have, but that's what it means to still be in the fantasy playoffs at this point. You've got a good team. Wes has got a good team, Tank. Which 3 guys do we like the best?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Giants, somehow they keep winning, and somehow they just have to be able to play against a high-octane offense in Minnesota. So there's no way you benching Saquon Barkley in the playoffs, so you go ahead and slide him in there. We already talked up J.K. Dobbins. We may have already jinxed him, but oh well, we're going to go ahead and throw him in there as well because he's been beasting, and he has a really good matchup. And I think one thing that gets lost in last week with Mac Jones getting the soul stiffed on out of him is that Ramondre Stevenson had like 170 rush yards. You know what I'm saying, against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think that's a play that you just can't pass up. So go ahead and give me Stevenson, even though he's going to have a tough matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, even though the whole thing was his fault. He was the one who lateraled first. But, you know what, actually it's Matt Patricia's fault, okay? How about just call a kneel? How about just take a knee? Don't be doing anything goofy on the last play there if you want to get to overtime. All right, we're going to get to this next question here. We've got Jahan Dotson, Mike Williams, Rachaad White, Marquise Goodwin, or Gabe Davis. Oh boy, need a wide receiver 2 and a flex here. Let's try to help out Mang, Tank. What are we thinking for this one? We need a wide receiver 2 and a flex.
Well, the one thing I would say is that I've had Gabe Davis on one roster the entire year, and I wish I would have done with him what I did with Allen Robinson and just discarded him midway through the season so I don't have to deal with that the entire year. But, okay, I digress. I'm going to go with Mike Williams because he's my cousin, and that dude has been balling out of control since he came back from that ankle injury. And I think another play for me is going to be Marquise Goodwin. We already talked about that matchup. Even though it's going to be cold in KC, they could potentially have a lot of points scored in this one. Vegas is predicting that it's going to be about 49.5. I think that's what the over-under is on that one. So give me Marquise Goodwin playing opposite of DK Metcalf.
I don't really want to trust the Bucs, but I do think for God's sakes, Tank, they should be able to control a game where they've got Trace McSorley on the other side, right?
Sure.
So I'll go.
Sure.
They should. They better be able to control that game. I think Rachaad White, if this is any sort of PPR, half PPR, I think I go with him in the flex, but I hear your logic on Goodwin as well. Last one we'll take here from Bill. Needs 2 of this group: Michael Pittman, Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne, or Jerick McKinnon for a running back and one of 2 flex spots. So this is interesting. We've got Pittman with Nick Foles taking over, LOL. But I feel like this one is probably going to come back to our guy Dobbins, who now, we're talking about him again. Mm-hmm. He's certainly cursed. And Jerick McKinnon, or do you think there's somebody better than J.K. Dobbins for that flex spot?
I don't. I think that Travis Etienne is going to get the volume tonight going against the New York Jets, but at the same time, that's a tough front that he's going against, and I think that Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco have such a layup in that matchup against the Seattle Seahawks run defense. They've been terrible for the past couple months, I believe, and so there's no way you can get away from that, especially with Jerick McKinnon being the most productive fantasy back over the past couple weeks. So yeah, give me McKinnon and give me Dobbins.
Man, well, we have absolutely cursed J.K. Dobbins, but Tank, you've given the people a great Christmas gift of great insight, great knowledge. You look beautiful, by the way. Happy holidays to you.
Don't say that Blanche never gave you anything.
All the love in their all. All right. We've talked a lot about J.K. Dobbins. Let's talk about a different running back here. Let's talk about Austin Eckler, who said to me in our pre-production meeting this week, hey, I'm ready to give some people some fantasy advice. Let's do a little fantasy debating on Eckler's Edge this week. Let's see what we did. Who do we like better this week? Brock Purdy versus Washington. BCB has been on fire since he's taken over for Jimmy Garoppolo, an injury there for the 49ers. He's got 71% completion rate the last 2 weeks, 4-0 touchdown interception ratio. Or do we prefer Aaron Rodgers at Miami? Now, Rodgers obviously the much bigger name. He's only had 3+ touchdowns once all year. He hasn't cleared 300 passing yards all year, which seems kind of outrageous. Do we like the big name or BCB going into this week?
Ooh, I feel like with BCB, you have the weapons, right? And then you look at the alternative, and it's the weapons aren't necessarily there, right? It's some guys that are trying to figure it out still, or guys that have on the back end of their career. So I feel like the ceiling is with BCB. And that's who I'm gonna go with him. Yep. Who'd you say they're playing?
They're playing Washington. Washington has a good defense. They definitely get after you up front, but
they do.
still, the Shanahan system just makes it so easy for quarterbacks. And I mean, to Brock's credit, like he's just he's looked real good. I'll tell you this, Austin. I have a Superflex Dynasty league that I talk about on the podcast too much, according to Lord Podcast, our producer John. But I actually started Brock over Rodgers last week, and I ended up winning. So I'm with you that I think Brock is probably the answer here if you're looking for quarterback help off the waiver wire.
All right, we still got a little bit of time to answer a few social questions here ahead of Week 16. Let's see what we've got. We'll start with Ryan. Ryan is asking Zach Wilson, Mustache Minshew, or Dak Prescott. Congratulations to Zach Wilson for working his way into this question. That's amazing. Matt, which one of these three are you going with?
How come you got to send this one to me? Well, we've got Zach Wilson, and then we've got two normal NFL quarterbacks. So we're going to move Zach Wilson to the side here. Between Minshew or Prescott, I think I'm still going to go with Dak in this one. Although, man, that ecosystem they've got Minshew, and he is getting dropped into a perfect situation there. Great offensive line. Dallas has a Where's Waldo on their defense right now. It's like, there's Kelvin Joseph. We're going to throw to that guy. We're going to get Devontae Smith to run routes against that guy. So I do like Minshew, but I think I still like Dak just a touch better.
Yeah, it's actually weird how close I have these two this week. Dak been throwing all kinds of interceptions. I agree with you, though. I would still go with Dak. Let's take one here from B-Rye, who's asking just another quarterback question, also involving quarterback playing tonight. Trevor Lawrence or Jared Goff? Tank, who do you like here?
Even though I've been ranting and raving about my man Sunshine, I don't want to have him in the elements. Actually, I think that the Detroit Lions are going to go up in there and get themselves a win against the Carolina Panthers. I know that the Carolina, they look pretty bad against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I think Jared Goff and those guys, they're on a hot streak, and momentum is a hell of a drug, so they're going to keep it going. Give me Jared Goff.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Tough conditions tonight. Let's take one here from Kennis. Kennis is asking Deontay Foreman, Jerick McKinnon, Michael Gallup, or Zay Jones. Deontay Foreman barely played a week ago. That was kind of wild. For me, this one would come down to Jerick McKinnon or Zay Jones in a normal week. Zay Jones has obviously been great lately, but so has Jerick McKinnon. This game flow figures to really support probably two startable running backs on the Chiefs side. McKinnon obviously has been fantastic, and he's kind of impervious to game flow right now. So I would go Jerick McKinnon here if we can only take one. Let's take another question here. This is from Raphael. It's another Zay Jones asking Zay Jones or Peoples Jones in the flex. Harmon, I'll go to you with this.
Yeah, very funny. I did a segment this week where I was talking about goofball receivers or legit guys, and both of these two are the top ones. So what do I know? I'll go with Zay Jones, though, over Donovan Peoples-Jones. Look, I think I'm just rather attach myself to Trevor Lawrence right now. And there's weather. Oh God, the weather. There's weather in both games, right? But the weather is supposedly, because we definitely always can predict that, weeks and days and whatever out. It's supposed to be worse in the Cleveland game, right? So I'll go with Zay Jones here, who I also think might be a little bit better of a player too.
Yeah, it's a good call. I can co-sign that. Let's take one from Benjamin. Benjamin is asking Rachaad White, Deion Jackson, or Zach Moss. Of course, Jackson and Moss, we haven't talked about them a lot. They are filling in for the injured Jonathan Taylor. The benefit to taking a Colt is that you get to punt this thing to Monday night, I guess. Tank, who do you like from that sketchy group?
Man, it is sketchy. And that's the thing, is just trying to figure out which one of those guys out of Deion Jackson or Zach Moss is going to be the bell cow. Because honestly, man, that Tampa Bay rush offense is so damn dusty. And the matchup, Harmon, can I do it? I don't know. Honestly, I have trust issues this week. And Tampa Bay, they've been giving me the most trust issues out of almost every team. I don't know if I can trust. I know Rachaad is getting most of the volume in Tampa Bay, but I don't know if I can trust that offense. I mean, it should be Rachaad White. Both of the matchups are nice, but
so you're going to use the word trust, and then you're going to trust the Nick Foles-led Indianapolis Colts? But you're going to trust
they're playing against the Chargers run defense. The Chargers run defense is one thing that you can trust you can get yardage against.
Listen, I get it, but still, I think I'd go with Rachaad White. I mean, my God, it's Zach Moss, bro, with Nick Foles at quarterback. I mean, hey, the Arizona Cardinals are not much better. They're not much better than the Chargers defensively.
Yeah, I cannot imagine rolling with Zach Moss in a must-win week. Let's take one more here. This one is from David. David is asking KJ Osborne or Josh Palmer in a PPR. I will take this. We talked about Josh Palmer earlier. It's kind of over with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen back in the mix. KJ Osborne coming off a 16-target game. You heard Matt talk him up earlier. I think there's another chance. No, not for 16 targets, but for a huge workload here. It's one of the few games where we don't really have to sweat the weather too much. I think KJ Osborne is the play. I think he's going to be a really good play for the rest of the season, and that is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Next week, it's the Fantasy Championship edition. And our season 17 finale, 17 seasons, man. Also, on Thursday, remember, December 29, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Dalton Del Don will be back. Scott Pianowski will also join us live as we look back at the 2022 season and ahead to next year. And of course, we break down those championship rosters. Good luck to all your fantasy teams this week. Happy holidays to all.
Happy holidays.
See you next week.